Assassination has been quite a busy international news platform for all of us as a country. In fact, the globally, we're all talking about one thing. And so what? Tensions between the United States, Israel, and Iran have escalated, really, following a coordinated strike and retaliatory threats. Now, the concern is not just regional, but global. Now, the question a lot of people have been asking that this entire decision or this single act, has it handed the entire global economy a bill? Should we be preparing for the consequences? And who best to have this conversation with Dr. Nanaya Omeriku? He's an expert in international relations. Doc, nice to say. Oh, good. Nice. You know what? What I did was to say that I'm waiting on Monday because you come and give me the scoop, you give me the juice, and you let me understand properly. For those of us who are just watching, you're probably waking up to the news today because it's just been a little over 24 hours, maybe, I'd say. What really has happened in Iran? What has happened?
Well, good morning to you and good morning to your viewers. Thank you for having me, as always. I think that we woke up to an incident that did not surprise many of us. And basically what is happening is that there's been a coordinated strike between US and Israel against Iran. And the supreme leader of that country, has been assassinated, if you like. And basically what is happening is that the United States and Israel are seeking for what you call regime change, which initially was not the plan or was not the intention, as President Donald Trump made us, believe. The idea of going into negotiation with Iran was basically to force that country to cut back on its uranium enrichment project or process that could, give Iran the capability of producing nuclear weapons. And in the middle of the negotiation, as we are made to understand, just like the first time they were in the middle of negotiation and America struck, the same thing happened, some days ago. In the middle of negotiation, they witnessed a barrage of assault on their territorial integrity and political sovereignty. So as it stands now, the supreme leader of Iran has been killed. Iran has also retaliated. The retaliation has been that it hasn't got the capability to strike America in America's homeland in US. But what it means is that it is targeting US's interest and military base in what you call the GCC countries, Oman, Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. Because Qatar, for instance, has the largest US military base in the Middle East. And so since Iran hasn't gotten the capability to strike US directly, it is targeting US interests in those areas and Israel as well, because these are the countries that are coordinating strikes, against Iran. So basically, this is what is happening, in the past few days. Okay,
that's a very good scoop. Let's stay in Iran and stay with the supreme leader. So if you follow the conversation quite closely, it is as if they do not want to attribute his death to the strike. They want to toe the line of religious means. What would that be? Why?
Well, the idea is to call martyrdom. So once he was a leader that was killed in the hands of the enemy, right? It's some kind of sacred religious act. So he's now a martyr, and so it has become some sort of mantra or song on the lips of, the religious leaders and those that are ideologically inclined to this idea of supreme leadership and what you call Islamic cleric. So, but of course, it's because of the strike from US and Iran. But what you must understand is that the relationship between US and Iran has not been bad for all the time that we've known. I mean, we grew up, some of us, we came to read of the Islamic Revolution, the Iranian Revolution. But before the Iranian Revolution, US had very good ties with Iran. So the issue was, the point I'm trying to make is that it was not all gloomy. The relationship it was a love that was lost. But before the Iranian Revolution, there was some good relationship between the US and Iran until the Iranian Revolution and the subsequent claim by the US that Iran is doing basically three things. One, because of its nuclear capabilities, but also because of the historical animosity or hostility between the US and Iran. That is two. And then three, what Iran calls the axis of resistance, the proxies it has in the region. If you go to Lebanon, it's Hezbollah. If you go to Gaza, it's Hamas. If you go to Yemen, it's the Houthis. And according to US, Iran is using what you call the axis of resistance to destabilize the Middle East region. But the fourth important factor is Israel. Because U.S. is basically doing what it's doing by what we know, also because of the relationship U.S. has with Israel. Because this is basically a gift to Benjamin Netanyahu. He's come to say that regardless of the scores of deaths that he have recorded, regardless of the calamities, of course, these are collateral damages, he has achieved what he's been wanting to do, or what Israel has wanted to do for the past 40 years.
Yeah. So
this is a gift. And I can assure you, in the next few months, the corruption cases and the unpopularity of Benjamin, he's facing corruption cases, and his coalition government is struggling to survive. In the next few months, their strike against Iran will be the talk of the day. So it is giving him some comfort season for some time.
It's interesting because with all of this that we're talking about with Benjamin Netanyahu, if you listen to Trump as well, the supreme leader who has just passed, Khamenei, will not be described quite differently, because when the strike was happening, you would hear Trump say that it's a time to take over your country. It's a time to seek freedom. Many have also described him as quite authoritative and were not really, and has ruled with quite a stiff hand. I'm wondering why Trump would love make with Israel when their leader as well has similar traits of this.
When you say their leader, you mean Benjamin Netanyahu?
Yes.
Oh, of course, there is no way Trump will sacrifice love for Israel in preference for Ayatollah Khamenei just because Benjamin Netanyahu. If you understand the relationship between Israel and U.S., it's inseparable. Even when American presidents have not loved respective Israeli presidents, their support has always been tacit. Billions of dollars in aid. Israel survives basically because of the United States.
Yeah.
And even though the ammunition that Israel has to occupy the West Bank and forcefully claiming territories, those resources are still being provided by the U.S. So as for the U.S. and Israel, you don't come in between them.
What kind of a leader would you describe the supreme leader, first of all? I want us to situate the conversation before we go to the impact.
So it depends on which side of the aisle you are sitting on. But let me give you a little bit background. Even before I come there, in Iran, right, as much as we saw people mourning his death, there was also a number of people that were also jubilant of his assassination.
Yes.
But the idea is that he has been blamed for the economic sanctions that are crippling Iran, because he would not budge to some of these negotiations that U.S. wants to have with them, especially concerning putting a chokehold on uranium enrichment. And then also the fact that the Iranian Republic, has tried to curtail societies, politics, culture of that area for a long time. People feel that the economic hardship, the pinch of economic hardship they are feeling, right? And the fact that he's been cracking down on protests and demonstrators, right? He's too authoritative. And the protests and the crackdown and the death that have resulted. There are two arguments here. There are people that are saying that there's been almost 30,000 deaths, but people are saying this is the media, Western media.
Yeah.
But the government itself has released the number of people that have been killed and their names, and that is almost in their 3,000. But even that is a significant number from the crackdown of the protests in last year.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So people are not happy with the way the economic hardship they are, because Iran is really suffering from economic hardship. No two ways about that.
But this man has been the leader for like over 30 years.
Yes, but the point is that he has the power and the resources to control, to stay and to keep everybody quiet. So it's more like a frustrating, aggressive theory. You have your hand on the pressure, but once they have an outside help, and that is what the Americans were trying to do, to try to blow what was happening out of proportion. And Trump knew that there were some little agitations here and there. I'm not saying that Ayatollah Khamenei was evil, but I'm just giving you the facts out there. Trump knew there were internal agitations out there, and that is why he said help is on their way. It's on the way. So anybody that is able to rise up against Ayatollah Khamenei, they were giving some assurance that Americans were coming. As to when they were coming, nobody knew. But he has a very tacit support. Once again, ideologically, there are people in Iran that are very comfortable with the kind of leadership he's been running for the past, 37 years. And he has instituted a system, right, that will ensure that even if he is gone, right, what he has put in place will continue. And immediately after he's left, we saw that the president, I hear the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and one member of what you call the Council of the Guardians are now in charge. And the Revolutionary Guard are going all out. So it is not just taking, the figurative head away, but what do you do with the system? And I think this is something that Americans did not plan. How are you going to deal with Iran going forward?
They expect that Iran itself will take the power back by itself.
But even that is very
sanitize it.
Exactly. That is because I am struggling to understand how they are going to institute a governance structure in Iran. Are we not going to see another Afghanistan in Iran? Are we not going to see another Libya in Iran? Are we not going to see another Syria in Iran? The precedents are too many for us to start to be really worried about what is going to happen to Iran going forward. And there are pockets of resistance in Iran that are waiting for these kind of things to happen and for them to blow the country into instability. The Kurds is one of them. So, I mean, it's a very volatile situation, and we don't really know what is going to happen in the next days ahead. Well, Iran is not Venezuela. Venezuela is America's backyard.
Yeah.
So it is easy for
That's a nice thing to say. Iran is not Venezuela.
No, it is easy for you to have control over that area. And that is why the New York Times has released an article that is saying that Trump envisaged that once they send USS Gerald Ford, which is the world's largest military aircraft carrier, and USS Abraham Lincoln, the idea is that the military power and the manpower of that aircraft will sustain quite a number of days or weeks of attacking or striking Iran. But they miscalculated Iran's resilience and how Iran is fighting back. So how long, because that is the only, and a few other military accoutrements you have in that area. When you start running out of ammunition, 6,000 miles away, how are you going to restock and make sure that you keep your strike on Iran going?
What's the role of the proxy countries here?
You mean the proxy?
Yeah, the proxies, yeah.
So right now, I mean, no two ways about that. The proxies are weakened. The Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza. And you see, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is a very instrumental. That is why for Trump, when he came to power, and I'll come to your question, when Trump came to power, he was against what we call the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which was kind of an arrangement made by US and some other European countries plus Iran to lift sanctions on Iran. And in place, Iran will also put a hold on its uranium enrichment or nuclear weapon capabilities. When Trump came to power, he said that they have handed to Iran a very juicy deal. And that as long as Iran is only tackling the nuclear capability, which is not even what they are doing, and then they have left the IRGC, which is the Iranian Revolutionary Corps, and destabilizing that region, it was not a very good deal. So he came and he destroyed the deal, and then he imposed sanctions back on Iran. So as long as Trump is concerned, he was interested in what we call maximum pressure.
Yeah.
Ground zero, impose all the sanctions you could possibly impose on Iran. And that is why the country has been economically ungovernable. And that is why people went on that protest, because they were feeling the pinch of the economic hardship.
I thought that the leader should at least budge.
Exactly. And create some economic liberalization in the system. Let some liberalism or liberalization, into the system.
Would you say that the sanctions that the US imposed would amount to the use of force? I would not want to go to the use of missiles and all yet, but the sanctions, would you say that would amount to the use of force on Iran?
So until last year, when US directly struck Iran, in what you call the 12-day war, there had not been that direct engagement between the two of them.
Yeah.
It was usually political, economic, espionage, and cyber, exchanges or cyber attacks.
Yeah.
In fact, the closest US had come into attacking Iraq was between 1980 and 1998, when there was what they call the Iraq-Iran war. They fought for almost 8 years. Yes, because at the time, Saddam Hussein thought that the Islamic Republic that was in Iran was a threat to Iran, was a threat to Iraq. And he thought that Iran was at its weakest moment, so he decided to attack Iran. And US, who was not happy because then the Shah, who was politically, gravitated towards Iran, had been, kicked away. And the Islamic government was what is in place in Iran. US decided now to support Iraq to attack Iran. In the Iran-Iraq war, US was behind Saddam Hussein's attack of Iran. And even that, the Islamic Republic survived. We haven't seen a direct engagement between the two of them. I mean, maybe the Iranian Revolution that saw 55 Americans being held in Iranian U.S. embassy in Iran for 440 days. But last year was the first time U.S. directly attacked, Iran in the 12-day war. The sanctions has been very, very crippling. But I think that, like you are asking, the first time these sanctions were very, very dire and crippling. In fact, last year it was ground zero, 2025. Oh dear. Prices of basic commodities in Iran, oil, sugar, almost all things you can think about, saw a 70% increment. Their currency depreciated. One of the reasons why Iran has been able to survive all this war is because of its relationship with its allies, because of the oil that it sells to China, and the other countries that buy, and its control of the Strait of Hormuz. So it is
how much percentage? 20% oil?
Yeah, I mean, I hear 20% of the world's oil. I mean, that we call it a maritime chokehold. Yeah. That area is a narrow strip. That is, I think the northern side is controlled by Iran. The southern part is controlled by, I think, Oman. But it gives, Iran so much resource, as we are talking now. And that is why I am very cautious to say that Iran will block the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
I mean,
very cautious.
Right now, we know prices I hear between 10 to 15%. Oil prices, has increased.
It isn't perceptive.
No, it's not perceptive. But the thing is that Iran itself is loading oil tankers in the Persian Gulf. You understand? Because it also needs the resources, even though it's if it closes the Strait of Hormuz, then what happens to its resources? It will be biting its own, curtailing its own resources just because it wants to push back against Western, strike. But I think that is one of the areas that Iran, could really inflict some damage, apart from the regional damages that it's inflicting, and they have repercussions. Yeah.
Let's stay on the regional damage first. What do you think? Is this some brinkmanship, or this is at least is introducing us to a much broader regional conflict that's brooding?
You know what? The Iranians have always maintained that if the Americans attack them, and basically this is Article 2, this is Article 51 of the UN Charter playing out here. When I'm sitting, I haven't struck you, and you strike me, I have every right to defend myself. Yeah. But if in defending myself, I do not mean to attack, because they have good relationship. Mind you, Iran and Saudi Arabia had a very bad relationship in 2023 when Beijing was able to broker a deal between them. Because one is a Shia leadership, one is a Sunni leadership. And 2023, this issue had been resolved. And so for Iran to come back and start striking Saudi Arabia and other countries is a very, dicey situation. But what options are they left with? If you attack them and they can't strike you directly in US, then they attack your military base. But in attacking the military bases, there are collateral damages. The missiles, Iran has 3 kinds of missiles. It has the short range, the mid range, and the long range that can fly 2,000 kilometers. It has what we call the drones and then guided missiles. Now, these drones they don't defy the laws of gravity. So when they shoot them into the air, even when you have the Patriot defense system, which is what these countries are using to shoot down these missiles that are fired by Iranians, even when they are destroyed in the air, they don't defy the law of gravity. Some of the debris will draw it. Yeah. They will crash on the ground. And so there have been collateral damages. Some of these countries have not been able to, counter all these missiles. And so there are collateral damages. And that is why these GCC countries were warning US, we don't want an attack on Iran. Because Iran has made it clear, if you attack them, we will be at their mercy. But they have been very cautiously optimistic also not to respond to Iran. Because the moment they respond to Iran, then the regional conflict has, has started. So they are hoping that, Iran is hoping that, this is Iran's calculation in my perspective, that if it escalates and aggravates attacks on the GCC countries, then they will mount pressure on the US to really, begin reconsidering.
You think US will fall for that?
But your military basis of striking them, apart from using the USS Abraham Lincoln and Gerald Ford, your military base that is no longer active is what makes you powerful enough in the Middle East region. Yeah. So if somebody is saying that, look, if you don't regulate your war with Iran, that means that you are putting us in danger. If they apply some maximum pressure, it's one of the areas that they could explore. Right now, Donald Trump has hinted, if it is true, that the Iranians want to talk. But the Iranians understand that twice beaten,
once,
exactly.
Yeah.
On 2 occasions when they were involved in negotiation.
That's when
you strike them.
That's when you strike.
You leave them with little choice to trust. And trust is a very important ingredient in diplomacy and negotiation.
Yeah.
What if they go in negotiation with you and knowing that now you are weak, they strike you back?
Yeah.
You would have been probably the useless government on earth.
You say that the U.S. didn't anticipate Iran's response in terms of strength, right? Let's measure Iran's missile strength, really. How do you measure it? On what scale do you give them? And these missiles and these things that they use, though, I'm not the only one that's curious. Do they manufacture it themselves? Do they purchase it? How do they amass that amount of missiles for them to be able to respond the way they are responding?
So I'm not a military expert, but the idea is that Iran has some capability of producing some of these, weapons. We've seen in the Russo-Ukraine war, we've seen drones not only coming from North Korea to Russia, but some sources are saying that some drones and some missiles have also come from Iran. So I mean, for a country that has the intelligence and capability to manufacture, to enrich uranium to the point of developing a nuclear bomb, it shouldn't come as a surprise to us if they have the technology to produce, ballistic missiles, both short, medium, and long range. But they are very effective. Mm-hmm. And the Israelis found out in the first war, the 12-day war. Of course, Israel has also realized that its system is not impenetrable.
Yes.
The Patriot system has failures. What it does is that when there is a missile fired by Iran, right, the Patriot system shoot it in the air.
Oh, that's what we're seeing.
That's what when they say there is a defense system, that's what it does.
Oh, right.
So when the Iranians fire their missiles, the Patriot system also shoot them down. But when it fires multiple ones at the same time, it is able to disengage. Sometimes the machine is able to lose track, and so some fall, some land on the respective base that they are fired to. So the Iranians really have, especially their 2,000-kilometer long range ballistic, missile, and that is what the Americans want to destroy.
Because when they do, they really have disarmed them.
Yeah, they do. That is what the Americans are seeking to achieve. But Iran has right now, they have come to understand that it's not about nuclear weapons, it's not about ballistic missiles, it's purely about regime change. It's an existential threat to them. And so they are going all out, they are not holding any point. And that is what the Americans miscalculated. You see, Trump has a very strong, the art of the deal. He comes in with force. And when he thinks you've been overwhelmed by the force, he forces you to the negotiation table. Mm-hmm. But he is miscalculating the resolve of the Iranians to go all out. And eventually, Trump is going to have some domestic problems back home, because he did not seek the approval of the Congress before going to war. There's what you call the War Act. He did not seek the approval of Congress before going to the war.
For?
Yeah, but it's a very serious issue, especially when you have the midterm elections coming up. Mm. When Americans' lives have been lost, I hear 3 servicemen have died from this war. How are you going to explain to the people? Especially when you came to power on the promise that if people voted for Kamala Harris was going to go to war with Russia and was going to trigger a 3rd World War, and that you were a peace president.
But he's been saying that this is a promise he made. He was going to deliver Iran too. No,
but if you made a promise, you came to campaign that you are not going to take America to necessary wars.
But if he finds this one as a necessary war.
Yeah, but then you are going against your campaign promise, and people will use it against you. It doesn't matter whether you made a promise and you want to receive
what is it for
a Nobel laureate.
I know that we say that this is basically like a gift to Netanyahu, but what is behind it? If you put Netanyahu here, what is in it for him?
Netanyahu?
If you put Netanyahu out, what is in it for
Trump? Okay, for Trump, and that's an interesting question, and there are different ways you can look at it. There is the domestic nuances, and I keep saying that Trump always has a political constituency, a political audience that he seeks to placate, or he seeks to satisfy. When he attacked Nigeria, for instance, Boko Haram in Nigeria, I've said it elsewhere that it was not really because Nigeria, was in Trump's, interest, but there was a political constituency Trump was seeking to satisfy, and Nigeria was only a stage. That is the evangelicals, right? Going into Iran, if you ask me, I'll talk about what the upheavals, right? One of them, 3 of them. One, sometimes Trump utterances get him into problems.
Yes.
because he is a man that always wants to live up to what he says. And once you've made so many utterances that you are going to attack Iran, if Iran didn't come around, and you've pushed some of your powerful military assets into that region, if you didn't act by it, you'll be seen as what? Weak. So he had himself locked himself in this entanglement because he had made those utterances, and in order to save face, he had to go ahead with it. That is one. Two, there is the argument that this is one of the ways of dwindling down these issues concerning the Epstein files. Issues of, how do you call it, the ICE protest.
Yes.
And how the U.S. is turning its federal law enforcers against its own people.
Yes.
And I can guarantee you, for the next few months or days ahead of us, the Iranian issue is going to be the most topical issue, right?
But why would he choose?
Why
would he choose that the Iranian? Why would he choose Iran?
But importantly, he is seeking to. He has a very poor ratings now. Very, very poor. His ratings is now 35%. Importantly, there is a historical animosity or hostility between the U.S. And Iran. And I've already explained that the Iranian Revolution, and particularly oil, the Iranian Revolution, oil, and the Americans and the Israelis. But so once again, the Israel factor come here. I've always seen Iran and its proxies as a threat to Israel and U.S.'s national interest. We saw some of the things that Trump cooked up. And these were not facts, that Iran is developing nuclear capability that has the potential.
I almost believed it.
No, it's never true.
I almost believed it.
Iran hasn't got that capability to strike 6,000 miles into U.S. It's never true. So these were some of the. I mean, he knows there is a historical animosity or hostility between the U.S. and Iran that is playing on, and he knows the Republicans will support him. In fact, majority of the Republicans, as much as they are aware of the political consequences for Trump and the Republican Party going into the midterms, they still support
But are you
Trump's
surprised?
action.
It's a given, is it not?
That they will support him?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I am not surprised. Of course, if you've seen some of their leaders have been responsible for attacks and invasion of other countries in their presidency. So I'm not surprised. But I'm saying that there are a number of reasons that gives America a stakehold. That makes it, a very interesting conflict for them to strike. That is the same reason why they struck Iran in the first war. They saw an opportunity and they struck. And they claimed that they destroyed the 3 bases that was home to Iran's.
Which was not true.
Well, if you destroyed it, why are you still saying that they are creating nuclear, weapons and ballistic missiles?
But I'm actually wondering, if this continues, as of this morning, where are we with this coordinated attack? Where are we as of this morning? In the last 4 hours, I haven't been following the news because I've been sitting here, but you just came in. Where are we? And I asked this question because if we continue like this, or if U.S., Israel continue like this, how far can Iran go? How far can they go?
Well, so there are maybe some dynamics to it, and this is why I have a problem. What is the purpose of alliances and allies, right? When people are going through some of these difficulties and they seem to be going it all alone, except that China and Russia calls for emergency Security Council meeting, and all they can say is that people should recalibrate their accents and rather negotiate and dialogue. So what it means is that next time if you are doing something, you have to be very careful, because when push comes to shove, you are likely to receive little assistance from those that claim are your allies. Yeah. We saw how Nicolas Maduro was bundled like a piece of anything that you can think about. So sad.
Yeah, so sad.
But this is what international politics is becoming. It's becoming might is right. And that is the fear. That is what terrifies me most. Now,
what can the UN Security Council do in all of this? Especially because US will just go and veto, and then that's it. So what will be their role? How can we see an end to this?
The UN Security Council, to my opinion, is a very toothless bulldog.
Oh dear.
Because of the veto power that each member has, right? Because if you table anything on the motion of Security Council, we will just veto it away.
Just veto it and it ends there.
And so it has because look, Trump's action had no Security Council or United Nations. It was a unilateral strike. He has done it in Venezuela. He has done it in Iran.
With zero
he has done it in Syria with zero consequences. So unless a powerful state is able to...
Like what? A powerful state?
Well, maybe Iran is... Look, and trust me, people are not happy in U.S. The public opinion is that people are not really happy because they think Donald Trump is dragging them into a needless war. Okay,
it's a good time to bring in what Kamala Harris says on Trump administration strike on Iran. And this is dated 28th February. Let me just take a read, and then because you have just brought that up. So Donald Trump, I'm reading this statement by former Vice President Kamala Harris, says that Donald Trump is dragging the United States into a war the American people do not want. Let me be clear. I am opposed to a regime change war in Iran, and our troops are being put in harm's way for the sake of Trump's war of choice. This is dangerous and unnecessary gamble with American lives that also jeopardizes stability in the region and an outstanding in the world. What we are witnessing is not strength, it is recklessness dressed up as resolve. I know the threat that Iran poses, and they must never be allowed to have nuclear weapon. But this is not the way to dismantle that threat. During the campaign, which Nana has just been saying, Donald Trump promised to end wars rather than start them. It was a lie. Then last year, he said he obliterated Iran's nuclear program. That too was a lie. And let's all be clear-eyed about what comes next. The president has already said this conflict may produce American casualties. And I will be praying for all of our brave servicemen and women who we know are undertaking dangerous missions with exceptional skills, discipline, and precision. Our troops deserve a commander-in-chief who approaches decision on the matter of war and peace with the same steadiness and discipline our troops show every day. Under the Constitution of the United States, the president must receive authorization from Congress to enter war. And Nanaya was spot on when he made that point earlier. But even if it had, that does not change the fact this action is unwise, unjustified, and not supported by the American people. There can be no equivocation in our opposition to Donald Trump's war of choice, and Congress must use all available power to prevent him from further committing us into this conflict. Our troops, our allies, and the American people deserve nothing less. At least Kamala Harris is speaking right. just like what you've been right. saying all through since you sat on the show this morning. What do you think Congress can do? So when and Marco Rubio, in defense of Donald Trump, came to say that indeed Congress was informed, but here is the catch: it was not done the constitutional way. Yeah, it's not like it was only a selected number of legislators who were informed, but even that they were informed in real time when the action was going on was when these selected legislators were informed. And that is not how you seek Congress approval to initiate a war, especially when you don't know how long this is not Venezuela. Like I keep saying, Trump miscalculated. The kind of ground operation that was undertaken to capture Nicolas Maduro is not the same one. Iran is comparatively a capable, nation in defending itself. And so he's played into the gallery of the Democrats, and they are going to really pound on him in the midterm elections. This is going to be one of the issues. Already, like I said, Trump's popular rating is going down. The ICE protest is one of the banks that the Democrats are going to cash from in the midterm elections. Already, the special elections that were held in the U.S., we have seen some Democrats winning states in areas that were red states. And so the ICE protest is there. The Iranian issue is right now, if it becomes escalated and aggravated, and we see more American lives lost, it's going to be a serious issue for President Donald Trump in the midterm election, and even for the Republicans in the elections, coming ahead. Let's bring the conversation home. As a country, somebody is wondering, why do we concern ourselves with this? What does this mean? First of all, how vulnerable is oil supply, in the region already? Right. And why should we concern ourselves? Right. So maybe we should break it down, not only, because I hear a lot of people talk about economy, we will come to the economy, but there are other indices that we also look at. Let's begin from the global arena. Basically what is happening is that we are seeing a recalibration of global politics or the world order. It used to be one based on a rule-based order, multilateralism, collective security. Now Trump has given us enough precedences, he's given us enough examples to cite
that the way to go is unilateral act or unilateralism, because he struck on so many occasions without approval from the United Nations, and as long as it's in the interest of US. He struck Somalia, I think. He struck Syria, he struck Venezuela, and now he struck Iran. There are so many examples that you can cite. So he's changing the global world order, right? It's no longer about multilateralism. And people are even saying that Trump action is amounting to, collapsing international law. Because right now, international law has no place. Once again, it's a toothless bulldog. How are you going to implicate the U.S. government for not seeking
approval? Where, by who?
Exactly,
how?
by who?
Yeah.
And that is a feature of the international system anyway. It's anarchical, right? There is no government for the whole world government. Yes. There is no order, a single order. So in that sense, we understand. Again, security-wise, we've seen what happened in Libya. When the Americans went into Libya, Barack Obama and Nicolas Sarkozy and other, European counterparts, when they went to Libya and they created that political mess, we saw how Libya became a hotspot for terrorist activities and how eventually it came down to Sub-Saharan Africa, and how Sub-Saharan Africa, western part of the region, is considered probably the most hotspot for terrorist activities. Now, in Iran right now, Ayatollah, right, was able to put a grip hold, whether it is because of his authoritative capabilities or it is because of his style of leadership. He was able to keep some stronghold in the country. There are insurgents forces in there that have been seeking to blow the country apart. The Kurds, for instance. The Kurds wants to form an independent state. Yeah. And there are other insurgencies groups out there.
I'm tempted. How successful can they be?
No, right now, if there is no political centralization, you are going to have pockets of people that have always felt they needed to break away. Now that Ayatollah is not around, it could be an opportunity for them. Yeah. But if you are not able to regulate the political situation in the country, right, it could become a hotspot for terrorist activities. And this could be exported to other parts of the world, including, Africa, and an already troubling, security issue that we have on our hand. So there is that, aspect. In fact, refugees, right? If it becomes a regional conflict, if Saudi Arabia, if the GCC countries decide to respond, and the area is no longer hospitable, is no longer accommodating, there's a possibility people might want to find safe havens elsewhere. And what is wrong with them coming to Africa? I hear there was a case where a group of Palestinians, there was a plane that landed in South Africa and there was quite a number of them on the plane. I don't know whether it was a mistake, but there was a story like that. The point I'm making is that Africa could become a safe haven, right, for people that are fleeing away from this crisis. If it blows out of proportion and the region becomes unstable. We have seen people from Lebanon who are not refugees but are seeking refuge here in Ghana. So there's a possibility of that too. How is our system ready to absorb this kind of thing? So it might
40 million of the kids.
Exactly.
If you put the blocks together.
Exactly. Oof. So if you put if you do a permutation of what is happening, it is so many miles away, but it has repercussion for us as a continent. But let me go to one that is directly, effort impact. Exactly. One of them will be the economic crisis. And that is why I pray that anytime a government is doing war on the continent, I pray that if it prays against internal instabilities or internal challenges, it should pray against some of these exogenous or external factors. Because Ghana seems to be on a good track. I mean, in terms of the credit ratings, in terms of the political, in terms of the currency appreciation, in terms of under indices, in terms of inflation, maybe other areas we are not doing very well. But we shouldn't, there is no two ways about the fact that if there is an oil price increment, because Iran produces a very large quantity of oil, and the Strait of Hormuz, which I hear controls 20% of global oil, yes, and 17 barrels of oil passes through that annually. If there's an increment, if because of the war, that strait is closed. I don't think Iran will close their side anyway. I don't think. But it will cost them much. It will cost them too. But the other thing is that it will cost, whether they close it or not, because the Iranians have the capability to deploy mines. They have sea mines. That will make the area you can't navigate it. What it means that the charter prices for going through them will be very, very, very expensive, and they will pass it on to the
insurances will be skyrocketing.
Through the roof.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what it means is that they will pass it on if Ghana can't contain it, like the way we are passing prices of decrement of cocoa price to farmers. If you think that we don't have the shock absorbers to absorb some of these economic crises, we will pass it on to the consumers. And once fuel prices increases, inflation increases, it affects our currency appreciation. And everything that the government has been doing so far, it gives the opposition the hardware.
You make a solid point there, because the reports already indicate that many ships have dropped anchor already,
exactly.
and that will mean a big blow to us.
Exactly. So there's a whole.
In your heart, just between you and I, but what do you think Russia and China will be thinking? I see they say that they condemn the attacks and all of that, but in their hearts and hearts, what do you think?
Look, if I had said that Trump's presidency compromises the rule-based order and projects unilateralism, that act of unilateralism without consequences or with impunity is the most important gift that could be handed, or that important lesson that China and Russia could be learning from this.
I hope.
Because what is good for the goose is good for the gander. If you went guns a-blazing invading Iran because you felt your national interest was at stake, you don't have the moral capacity or the moral right to talk to me about not attacking Ukraine or about not swallowing Taiwan.
Yeah.
And so I've said that, look, if there was ever a better time, a moral lesson or a political lesson for China and Russia to learn from what is happening to Iran by US and Israel, they are probably looking at how they could also consolidate their gains on the areas that they want to capture. And China is watching this very, 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 very closely, if you ask me.
Well, let's spend about 2 to 3 minutes on the Russia-Ukraine war. Of course, we can't have this conversation isolated from that. I mean, if you've seen what our foreign minister has been saying, that since 2022, a little over 200 Ghanaians have traveled to fight in this particular war. But what's even more striking is 55 of them have died.
Right.
And what is even more sad is 2 of them are prisoners of war. I mean, I don't know, but if you're a country like Ukraine, you leave no prisoners, you take them all.
Right.
And so I can understand. But what can we do? What are our options?
Well, I think that it's important to understand that these people left the shores of Ghana in search of greener pastures. They are not military people. They don't have paramilitary training.
So they take them there and train them first?
Yes, that's what is happening. And they basically train you for 7 to 10 days.
Hey. And
they put you at the war front.
Hey.
And that is why the minister has said that, the Minister of Foreign Affairs has said that these are criminal trafficking networks. Because they lure you, they have cyber agencies here, and they advertise that they are looking for people to go and work in the agricultural sector or in security in banks. You understand? And you get there only for you to find out that every advertisement was false, and that you are just giving some 2-3 day training. They give you the military accoutrement and they put you at the war front.
So come home.
Oh, but it's very difficult. I mean, in some instances, I hear they sign
undertakings
in Russian, and people don't really understand, and their passports are seized.
Wow.
Yes. So it's just like the stories we've heard about how Ghanaian house helps are maltreated in UAE and in those countries.
The focus should be on the immigration, though, because going in and out, immigration should be able to tell just nearly where you're going and what you're nearly going to do. Or I'm asking for too much.
No, but it's also very difficult, because if somebody has to travel and they have a document to show.
If they go through these cyber networks and all, that's even more easy to track.
Right. So that is why the government is now being circumspect as to the kind of agencies that are recruiting, because like it's a pure case of cyber, criminal, cyber trafficking agencies. And so the government is now being circumspect in how it's dealing or combating it. As much as there is that diplomatic relation in trying to bring them back, how do you nip it in the bud here? But also importantly, how do you create those economic comfort zones so that your people are not compelled to choose between death and living in Ghana to make a livelihood?
I mean, sadly, the 55 we have lost, but the 2, I know that it can only be diplomacy and negotiations.
Right.
But what can we give to get the 2, possibly, if you look at the laws?
I mean,
possibly.
I mean, what can we give as Ghanaians to Ukraine?
Maybe we should give them gold, small gold.
No, I think diplomacy.
That's
and I heard one of the previous panelists talk about how they are prisoners of war. And so if they are prisoners of war, usually it's a diplomatic engagement. Was it with a teacher that said that he prefers to be a prisoner of war than a normal prisoner? Because as a prisoner of war, you have a lot of rights. Yes, you have a lot of rights. So I think that diplomacy is the way to go, but also importantly, how do you track these criminal networking, trafficking network agencies in the country? I hear the statistics are that is 1,400 Africans so far from 36 African countries, and 3 countries are taking the lead. I hear there's Egypt, there's
Zimbabwe.
Cameroon?
Okay.
Yeah, Cameroon, Egypt, Cameroon.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's Ghana or some other country. So I think this is a very serious issue that the government must put its cyber security agencies into action, into tracking how these people, are taken out there.
I'm so sorry for the families of these 55 Ghanaians, and even more sad for the 2 who are prisoners of war. Most of their family members said they've not heard or seen anything of them. But Nanaya, always a pleasure. You know how it is, like you're in the kitchen and you hear on the CNN, you have your coffee and your TV, by your TV, you're following the conversation keenly. Right. I know that you do that, so when I miss a few, I'll call you.
Right, that's fine.
Thank you.
But one last thing before I go.
Okay.
I think that the government should understand that every 2 or 3 years, there is something that really shocks the economy. So that is what the economic and political risk analysts should talk about. I think that we need to brace for impact and put in measures so that when these things happen, we know how to provide some,
You talk about 15 months import cover. Maybe it's a good time to look at that critically.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nanaya Mreku. But please, stay with us. Before I hand over to Joy News Desk, just a gentle reminder, every day someone in Ghana is diagnosed with leukemia and asked to travel abroad for treatment. This must stop, please. Join Build Ghana's first Center for Hematology and Clinical Genetics. Donate to the Leukemia Project Foundation. Here are 2 options: Stanbic Bank, Silver Star Airport City, CD account 9040004356 and for dollar 90400042998889, or you may choose EcoBank, Silver Star Airport City as well. CD account 14410001445545 and dollar account 34410001445544, and MTN, quite a quick one, MTN Momo 0545013437. Telecel Cash 020-069-5209. This initiative is by the Joy News Impact Makers Foundation in partnership with the Leukemia Project Foundation. Please be kind and contribute. As you know by now, my mom passed because of leukemia, so please be kind. But thank you so much for watching the show. I'm Emefa Akosia Adeti. Please stay for Joy News Desk.